Research indicates that predictors of success in individuals with learning disabilities are self-awareness, proactivity, perseverance, goal setting, presence and use of effective social support systems, and emotional coping strategies. An essential skill that supports several of these domains is self-advocacy. In this strategy tube, I will focus specifically on self-advocacy as a skill that is essential to students with learning disabilities in post-secondary environments. Learning disabilities refer to a number of disorders that affect learning in individuals who otherwise demonstrate at least average abilities. For success, these individuals require interventions appropriate for their learning disability subtype and, at a minimum, should include specific skill instruction, accommodations, compensatory strategies, and self-advocacy skills. So what is self-advocacy? It is about speaking and negotiating for oneself. It's about making informed decisions, and it's about knowing how one would like a problem to be resolved. An excellent place to start with understanding effective self-advocacy is with the framework developed through a meta-analysis by David Test and his colleagues. Three of the main components to this framework are knowledge of self, knowledge of rights, and communication. Knowledge of self, or self-awareness, is the critical foundation of self-advocacy. Each student has a different learning profile with specific strengths and weaknesses in terms of academic functioning. To be an effective self-advocate means knowing one's strengths and challenges, both personal and academic, including preferences, goals, and interests. Knowing and understanding one's learning disabilities, being able to explain what academic accommodation strategies one uses for his or her disabilities, and understanding one's responsibilities as a student or employee with a disability. Understanding oneself and the accommodations necessary to support one's own learning are crucial to success. The second component of this framework is about knowing what one's rights are as an individual, as a student, and as a member of society, and is important in the process of self-advocacy. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Human Rights Act of each province prohibit discrimination on the basis of a disability, including learning disabilities. Students should also be aware of their educational institutions' policies related to the rights of students with disabilities. Understanding what these mean to an individual's situation, steps to redress violation or advocate for change, and knowing where to find resources about these issues provide individuals with essential understanding and tools for advocating. Effective communication is the third component of this framework. Communication is not only knowing what to say and to whom, it is also a whole host of skills such as assertiveness, body language, and compromise. As weak social skills are often a problem for students with learning disabilities, explicit instruction, coaching, mentoring, and role-playing are all important activities in building effective communication skills for self-advocacy. In a review of self-advocacy skills interventions, Test and his colleagues recommend strategies such as role-playing, as well as whole group, small group, and one-on-one instruction. They also recommend the self-advocacy strategy developed by Van Roosen and colleagues, and the self-directed IEP by Martin and others. They particularly found value in utilizing the IEP process as an instructional strategy for teaching self-advocacy skills. They also recommend that teachers carefully review their own beliefs and examine their instructional materials for evidence of possible bias regarding student self-advocacy. So why is self-advocacy important to students with learning disabilities? As you can see, completion of post-secondary education for individuals with learning disabilities is pretty bleak. Research suggests that self-advocacy is an essential skill that supports students with learning disabilities to succeed in post-secondary environments, yet many of these students leave high school without the skills necessary to effectively advocate for themselves. As Wanda Hadley notes in her research, students shift from an environment in high school where they can be relatively passive to an environment where they are expected to be active in terms of supporting their own disabilities. Post-secondary institutions typically have a standard list of accommodations available to identified students. It is up to the student to determine which accommodation is needed in which scenario and request access to that accommodation. However, post-secondary students often experience a lack of understanding and acceptance by peers, staff, and faculty. This lack of understanding may mean, for example, that an initial request for accommodation is declined. It is then up to the student to negotiate with the teacher or professor to obtain that accommodation or some agreed-upon compromise. So, in order to foster success, it is clear that students with learning disabilities need to understand what they need and when they need it, determine what options are available to them, and articulate these needs to negotiate a positive outcome for themselves. One key to success for students with learning disabilities is to be able to self-advocate effectively.